I'm Leonard Nimoy. Join me for In Search of
An Argument.
Welcome to In Search of an Argument. It is Thursday, June 4th, as Jim likes to say, and Beth, Jim, and I are here for a greatest American songwriter New York Times article follow-up episode. Jim, what are we talking about today?
Well, probably because of our podcast, the New York Times did a readers poll to see what their readers thought about the list, and they came up with based on the readers' votes, 100 top living American songwriters. Now, the original list, which was picked by the Times critics, was 30, so it's not an apples to apples thing. And I believe, I don't have the list in front of me, so maybe one of you can correct me. I believe that all 30 of the entries on the critics list made it somewhere in that top 100. Maybe I'm...
No, Missy Elliott.
Missy Elliott didn't make it. Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you, Beth, for correcting me. But so 29 out of 30, which is pretty good. The order is, what it is, and we're going to talk about that, obviously. Yeah, so we should plunge in. But before we do that, I just have to make a podcast note, which is I don't think we've ever done a podcast episode with this particular trio and no one else. I think this is a first for us.
Yeah.
We've done some other combinations, but this is the first time.
It is.
So, those of you who are keeping score at home,
and
this
as
is
we're
new
getting less afraid of doing, mixers and matches.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to do more, as we said. So this is more.
It's going to happen more. Yeah.
And it means when we're doing more, it means it's going to be
not
all of us together.
So I have a bunch of questions. I have a bunch of questions because, I start.
Beth will answer all of them.
My first impression glancing at it is that for the top 10 or the top whatever, for the top 10, the New York Times didn't do that badly. I mean, it only, 2 of the top 10 were voted in from the voters over what they had already had on the list. So they didn't do that badly for the top 10. And then we can get into it. But I guess what I'm wondering is, there are a few editor's notes here that say that people voted for like dead people, which is off the list, obviously, because it's living songwriters, or people who are British. And I guess I can understand that. I'm wondering if people also voted for people who weren't songwriters. Maybe they were just performers.
I don't know. It's possible.
I mean, I don't even know who is just a performer. Like, I don't even know who some of people. If I like the song, I didn't go look it up if they actually.
That's a good question. Like, I think Linda Ronstadt, for example, who is a brilliant singer, who's done, by the way, one of the things that's brilliant about her is she's done many different genres. She's done show tunes. She's done Latino music. She's done jazz. She's done rock. She's pop. She is basically an interpreter of songs. I'm not saying, I would bet she probably has a couple of songwriting credits, but basically she interprets songs that other people do, like Frank Sinatra would do or somebody else. That is not as common in the last 50 years or so.
Is that true?
Well, basically the theory is that Bob Dylan started the trend of the singer-songwriter. And importantly, Brian Epstein told John Lennon and Paul McCartney, you should write your own songs.
Wow.
And then
in Just Kids. That's in Just Kids by Patti Smith.
Right.
And that's in that book.
Once they started doing it, everybody else, because they were the Beatles, everybody else, the Rolling Stones started doing that because Andrew Loog Oldham, who one time worked for Brian Epstein, said, you guys got to do the same thing. Part of just as a footnote, part of the reason for that is financial, because songwriters get royalties.
That's where the money is.
That is where some of the money is. For example, and again, I don't want to bore you guys or take you down too many alleys or blind alleys. On American radio, not satellite radio, but traditional American, what they now call terrestrial radio.
Right.
Every time they play a Beatles song, or every time they play a Rolling Stone song, or any kind of song, the group does not get paid. They get the performers get no royalties for that.
Interesting.
but the songwriters get royalties for that.
And that's still true today with new songs?
It's true of terrestrial radio. I believe it is not true of satellite radio. I don't know how big terrestrial radio is anymore.
Now,
so
why is that? That's because you can own as intellectual property the song.
No, it's got nothing to do with that. It's basically just tradition. That's how it started. It's not really a rational thought. Basically, I think, from what I understand, and somebody who knows more about this, I would love to know more about this. But from what I understand, the original impulse was the performers wanted their songs played on the radio because it promoted the sales. So it was like you're doing us a favor playing the song. And so that's how it started. Now,
well, that makes sense, but that doesn't explain why the writers did get paid.
Because the writers have always had that. They've always had these licensing fees. The writers, and it's not just the writers, it's the music publishers. See, because before there was recorded music, you'd write a song, you'd get someone to publish it, they would sell the sheet music. That's how you made your money. Once you had recorded music, they basically took that sort of formula and applied it to recorded music, and then it started applying it when they started playing music on the radio. And so the songwriters thing, because there was this tradition there, they sort of carried that tradition over, but there wasn't an existing tradition like that for the performer. And again, if somebody knows more about this and wants to correct me, I'm open to that. So I've done some work. I find it very interesting myself. As I said, I would love to read the definitive. To me, the definitive history of Billboard magazine would cover all this stuff. So I would love to see somebody write that. Because
I didn't think the songwriters necessarily got money every time a song was played. I always thought, and this is what I thought was as recent as Taylor Swift re-recording her early albums so that she could keep the money. I thought it was the label, but I guess it could be anybody who owns the rights.
The label,
right? It could be whoever owns the rights.
No, when you do get recordings, like when you sell a record, or when there's a download of a stream,
right?
The label gets some of the money, but the performers also get some of the money.
Right, but that's super contemporary. Oh, so that you're saying the Taylor Swift story
just go back to before there was streaming, when you had a record.
Right.
In Taylor Swift's case, my understanding is that she was unhappy with the fact that she wanted to have control of her recordings. It wasn't as much about the monetary situation as she wanted to be able to have control over the recordings. In other words, who would they license them out to? Who would they sell? Certain things aren't controlled by formula, like radio airplay and stuff, and public performances are controlled by formulas. But like selling your performance to a television show or a movie, that's something that's negotiated by whoever controls the right to the recording.
Okay.
And again, I could be wrong on this. My understanding was that Taylor Swift, as a lot of artists who are very successful, when you first start out, you basically take what the record company will give you. You become very successful. You go back to the record company and say, hey, I've made you a lot of money. Now I would like to have my terms. The record company wouldn't do that. So Taylor did what I suspect in the future, if the record companies don't give in, other successful artists will do. You know what? I'll just re-record those albums. My fans will buy my version because they're not fans of the record company. They're fans of Taylor Swift.
Right. Fair enough.
Not everybody has the same fan base as Taylor Swift.
Beth, Beth, what did you think of the list?
Yeah.
Oh, I really liked it because it named a bunch of the people that we said, how come so-and-so wasn't on the list? It did also come up with some of the questions we had, like, what do you do about Fleetwood Mac? Like, so Stevie Nicks is listed on here. They talked about, like, when I was saying I can't believe James Taylor wasn't on there. Well, Carole King was on the first list. She's written at least one of his songs. But I think of James Taylor as also a writer of great songs. So that's why it was like, why wasn't he there? I love John Hiatt. I didn't know if anyone else knew who John Hiatt was. So I'm glad that he made the list.
He's an exceptional writer, by the way.
John Hiatt in Chicago, there's a radio station, WXRT, which has always been like the intelligent rock station,
like WHFS for old time DC.
And WXRT
people.
in Chicago is, he is a standard there.
Yeah,
he is a standard. Hiatt is a standard.
He is particularly, I think, very very clever and witty lyrics. In my opinion, he's
Yeah.
very. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about James Taylor, and I agree. I think he's a fine songwriter, but I will say, for example, the four most popular recordings, singles, not albums, singles that he has made, 3 of those are songs he did not write. So, and I wonder the people voting on this. And again, I'm not saying he's a bad songwriter. I don't feel that at all. Fire and Rain, which he did write, is a terrific song, a great song. And he's written some other good songs. But a lot of the stuff that he is most popular for is stuff that he did not write. And I don't even know. Part of the question is, when you say that you have fans that voted for people who are not living and you have people that are not American, is do they even know that, like, are they voting for James Taylor because they like his songs and they don't realize he didn't write them all? One of the things the Times points out is 28 of the first 30 places on the list. And you could even argue it's maybe 27, depending on how you classify Lucinda Williams, who is a performer, but I think she's far better known for her songwriting than performing. But certainly, except for the 29th and 30th place, if you count Lucinda Williams, are people that are basically more known as performers. Not that that's wrong, but again, it raises a question of whether the people are evaluating them as, are they separating out the performer from the songwriter? And it's supposed to be a list of songwriters. Again,
well, but based on what you said earlier, it does seem to me that it's like a reasonable thing to conflate the two, given that was the movement since post, Bob Dylan or post Beatles.
Yeah, except that it's not purely.
Well, I mean, I guess I always assumed that. I remember going with my friend Tom's family down to the Alabama coast, right on the Florida border, and going to a famous bar called Florabama. That's half in Alabama and half in Florida on the coast. And
didn't they make a TV show about that?
Did they? Maybe they did.
Yeah.
And we used to go. My recollection is we'd go there and you'd hear some guy sitting there playing a guitar in a tiny bar. It's not big, like just sitting around having a beer, and there's like 20 people in the room, and he's going, "I wrote this one for Madonna." And then he plays it. And in my head, I've always assumed there are like these kind of nerdy songwriters who write songs, and then the big guys know how to promote them, produce them, get them out of the market, like dress slutty to make themselves look good on stage, and then they make them $1 billion. Like, I always assumed that was the case. So I guess it's funny that, like,
it was.
I don't know. I mean, I'm great. Yeah. I mean, I already am a little bit biased against a songwriters list or even a songwriters performers dichotomy, because I frankly place a lot of value in the production. I mean, and I mean, I would like to see the 100 greatest producers, but I guess everybody hates them. They're like developers in real estate or something. They're evil.
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
First of all, Rolling Stone has done periodically a list of the greatest producers of rock music of all time. I don't know what the most recent version of that is. So those lists have been done.
Okay.
I think it would be interesting to look at, and this is true, that you have producers who have worked with great songwriting teams. And as a collaborative
Last episode, Madonna came up, and Peggy said her favorite album was the one that Madonna did, Ray of Light, with William Orbit. William Orbit's a producer. He has a sound. I love his sound. I loved his sound before Madonna. I love it. He did that album with her. That's why Peggy loves it, because it was William Orbit. It was like, I mean, it was the production. It may have been the song, but it was the production. So I'm not criticizing it.
But I mean, it could also be it. To me, I think the best stuff is usually the synergy between the writing, the production, and the performance.
It's a team.
So if you talk about the Beatles,
okay,
Lennon and McCartney wrote most of their songs, not all, but the vast majority.
Yeah.
But, George Martin, who was not, even a rock guy, was a classical music guy, certainly played an invaluable role in making them what they were.
For sure.
Phil Spector is probably the most famous music producer. He's probably the most producer who's gotten the only record producer who's got more credit than he deserves. And he was a very great producer, perhaps a despicable human being, but a very great producer. But he worked with some songwriting teams like Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich. And a lot of the best stuff is the collaboration among the writer, the producer. And in Phil Spector's case, unfortunately, the performers often get shortchanged and all the credit is given to Phil Spector. But it's usually the other way around. You're right. Producers are generally underappreciated. I wish Peggy were here to hear this. So Simon and Garfunkel, their first big breakthrough, number one record was Sounds of Silence, which we've all heard a million times. If you recall that record, it starts off with a very simple acoustic version of the first verse, and then you hear the drums kick in and all that stuff happen. And yes, thank you. We can edit that out, right?
What's his name?
Sorry.
What's the name of the person you're talking about?
Oh, no. So let me finish the story.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So Simon Garfunkel had recorded that song purely as an acoustic song.
Okay.
They had more or less supposedly given up that they were ever going to succeed. Paul Simon had resigned himself that he was basically going to be a songwriter writing songs for other people. A producer at Columbia Records, a guy named Bob Johnson, who had worked on the early Dylan albums as well, because he worked for Columbia Records, where both Dylan and Simon & Garfunkel. He went ahead and put that drums and put that backing track on there. There are some reports that Simon & Garfunkel didn't even know about it until that song was released. They didn't even know he had done it. And without that, who knows what might have happened to them and to Paul Simon's career.
Yeah, for sure.
That's an example. Now, you could argue maybe they should have been more collaborative, but things.
No, I mean, look, Power. I keep talking about Power on these podcasts lately. I don't know why, but I mean, Power. I'm a Power guy.
You're embracing the spirit of Michael Foucault.
But people have different. I'm pre that, but yeah. But if a quick research, a quick Google search for me comes up with these names for the most famous producers living today: Rick Rubin, never heard of him.
Yes,
Quincy Jones, never heard of him. Max Martin, never heard of him. Dr. Dre, heard of him.
Max Martin is
Pharrell Williams, heard of him, and Timbaland, heard of him.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I know.
Rick Rubin's pretty famous. He's an old time guy. Quincy Jones might be the most, next to Phil Spector, the most talked about.
But people hate producers, right? They hate them the way they hate real estate.
I don't know where you get that impression.
Real estate developers.
Where's that coming from? Where is that impression?
I am thinking of a particular friend of mine, the friend of my husband's, who is down on Taylor Swift and probably other people, but I've heard it specifically about Taylor Swift that basically when you listen to a Taylor Swift song, you're really just listening to like a highly mechanized machine of factory music that's not like pure artistry, flowering and blossoming into the world.
I mean, that is a point of view.
It's an authenticity question.
I've heard
production,
that.
When back in the day when I said I liked New Order, and people would say, "You like New Order? It's all electronic." I'm like, you can't overproduce a song. Like, there's no such thing as overproducing. Like that's a basic position I feel. So if that's true, then that would be opposed to the people who are like somehow there's something pure. But that's why I think it's so funny, Jim. You're saying that this idea that the pure thing is that the performer is the one who wrote it. That pure thing is only as recent as Bob Dylan or the Beatles.
I think that is more a question not of purity but of money. Why people do that. But secondly, I would say this. I think there are people who think
what's a story?
Wait a minute, let me finish for a second.
I didn't understand it.
There are a lot of people who think some records are overproduced. That is not an uncommon view. But honestly, some records that some people, consider overproduced, I think are brilliant. I think it depends on the record. It depends on the song. It depends on the performance.
I'm well aware of the fact that I'm unusual. I'm unusual.
What do you think?
That I think there's
I just like what I like. I don't think, this sounds overproduced to me, or
some songs you don't like, maybe it's because you think there's too much going on.
Some people go into a restaurant and they don't notice that the bathroom is really clean. I'm one of those people who notices the bathroom is really clean in this restaurant, and I am grateful for it. Like I notice
How
detail.
Does that?
I just am ADD. I notice OCD, ADD.
John,
I notice.
Let me give you another example that's more relevant, which is you've said many times you don't really pay attention to the lyrics. Some people pay a lot of attention to the lyrics. We all have different things that we focus on. Some people focus more on the lyrics. Some people focus more on the music. Some people like a very clean, unproduced sound. There's nothing wrong per se with any of that. I think that some people definitely go in with very strong biases, like, I'm not going to like a record that's overproduced. I more agree with Beth, is there's some songs that have a lot of production that I think are great, and some songs that are very spare and acoustic that I think are great recordings. It sort of depends. It depends on the performer. It depends on the song. It depends on how it comes out. There are some songs I think, that could use a little more oomph. There are some songs I think, wow, they really kind of overdid it. But I don't think per se production is bad. And I don't think sometimes, I can enjoy a very simple, spare sound at times.
So what is this list of the New York Times readers' opinions about these things? What does this tell us?
Well, I was going to ask, is there anyone, now that we have this expanded list and a bunch of people that we talked about the other day made the expanded list, are there still people you think are missing that should have been on there?
Well, I guess I would say if you're going to put James Taylor on the list, I think you have to give some consideration to his erstwhile wife, Carly Simon. Was more of much more so than James Taylor, wrote her own material.
Carly Simon's
some
on
very
there.
great songs.
Number 50.
I'm sorry.
Number 50.
I didn't realize that. My bad.
Just
she should be high
in front of me.
Let me put it this way: she should be higher than James Taylor as a songwriter, because she's.
It's
more
Beyonce and then Paul Westerberg. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, Paul Westerberg's a terrific writer. I love Paul Westerberg.
Of course.
I'm a big Replacements person.
Of course.
I actually made John go to a Replacements reunion concert.
We had a great time.
Terrific. So
that was a fabulous show. And we saw Joan Jett at the same one.
Joan Jett. We saw Blondie, who weren't great. I think they were just having a bad night. We saw Blink 182. We saw Public Enemy.
I've never heard of So I'll tell you what's interesting to me on the list is of the ones in pink. So the ones in white were the ones that you're telling me are already on the old list. The ones in pink, the new ads, these are ones I've never heard of before. Okay. Jason Isbell.
I've heard of him, but I'm not. He's sort of a country guy, right, Beth?
I don't know
more about him.
Never heard of him.
I have friends who like him. I haven't.
Yeah, I don't really know.
I'm familiar
Jimmy
with his
Webb?
music.
Never heard
Jimmy
of him.
Webb actually was a big songwriter in the late 60s, wrote a lot of terrific songs. I will say, if I were a voter, I would penalize him because he wrote that hideous song, MacArthur Park. And I don't know whether you should be penalized because, to be fair, I'm sure all those great songwriters have written some crappy songs at some point. It's just the nature of the game. Unfortunately, his crappiest song gets played on the radio. So it's, I would have to.
Who's Sufjan Stevens?
He's he's great. He did a play that I saw Illinois.
Oh, Illinois.
Yeah.
I didn't know he did that.
He did Illinois, the soundtrack, the song?
Yeah.
Okay, we saw that.
Very good.
That play, the musical.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And,
so wait, what do you call that? What do you call a person who writes songs for musicals?
Songwriter. It could be a lyricist and somebody
it's not musical theater. This is like
theater. In theater, it's usually called the score and the lyrics. So
so does that open the door to like what's his face?
Well, Lin-Manuel Miranda's on there.
Yeah, right? He's on it, which I thought was
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, but what about from West Side Story?
He's dead.
That? Oh, he's dead.
In Sondheim or live. He, in my opinion,
Sondheim
would have to be top 10.
I didn't know. That's right. Sondheim.
In my opinion, he's top 10 if he's alive.
Okay, I get it.
But you could say that about Irving Berlin or George Gershwin or Cole Porter or there's a lot of people.
Adrian Lenkler.
I don't know.
I don't know who that is.
Wow, that's one I never heard of in my
Maybe
life.
some of our devoted listeners will let us know that they know who these people are. And
well, so I wonder, it does raise the question, does the Times article tell you how many votes each one of these guys got? I'm just curious. How much?
It does. It says the total number of votes, and it says there were people who only got one vote, but they obviously didn't make the top 100.
All right,
so
there you go. Because I'm a pretty avid New York Times reader, and I don't remember like somebody like saying, "Hey, you read this article, fill out this, respond." Like and the people who write comments on articles aren't really my people.
Okay.
Well, are they your people?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever written a comment.
Yeah,
on an
exactly.
article,
and I'd even argue the people who
that may be a function of our age.
I'd even argue the people who read the comments aren't really my people.
Okay, So just this is just a bit of information. So I assume most of the people who voted are New York Times subscribers, at least to the online edition.
Yeah, right, correct.
And
so there's already.
What do you think the median
bias.
age of a New York Times subscriber is? No, I'm curious. I looked it up for this thing. What do you think it is?
55.
I was going to say 55.
It's 43. So it's younger than I thought. Now, that includes people who do the online only.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, if you do dinosaurs like me, you get the print edition. I mean, sure, it's way higher than 55.
I can't believe anybody gets the print edition, but that's
thank
fascinating.
You. Thank you for.
I guess I don't even believe it exists.
Thank you for diminishing me. Thank you.
I get it as well.
You get it every day or just Sundays, Beth?
I get it every day.
See?
That's great.
Every day.
Okay,
no, I mean, I think I didn't.
So
know
you just diss both me and Beth with one breath.
No. It's more it's just shocked that it.
I mean, you can diss me all you want, but dissing Beth is a dangerous game.
I mean, as much as I have my friend Sharon's bringing over The Economist leftovers that she's getting because her husband's been getting them. So she's been bringing over leftovers, and I'm like reading them and I'm enjoying them. But I have to be honest, it's harder to read without a backlit thing. Like it's like harder. It's harder to read. I have to have a really bright room, and I got to
tell you,
there's so much more work involved than just picking my phone up and going for it.
And this is my feeling about this. And this is personal. I work and I do a lot of stuff. I pay bills with my screen. I do all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
I so much more enjoy reading not on a screen. That's just me. I mean, to me, when I'm on a screen, I feel like I'm working when I'm reading on a screen.
Yeah. No, I mean I prefer books on paper more.
That's what do you think?
I'm listening to audio, but but for newspaper, there's no comparison.
Beth, what do you think?
Oh, I love the physical newspaper. It's all part of my routine of
I do too.
how I
at the kitchen table.
I start at the front section of the paper with my morning coffee, and then if I don't have an early meeting, I go to the living room and sit and read a little bit of the paper before I really start my day. I save sections, so then I can, if I'm doing something else, I can grab a section if I know I'm going to be waiting somewhere or something. And I'm like Jim, I have a Kindle that I use reluctantly when I'm traveling. I would just much rather have a physical thing to read. Yeah. I do listen to a lot of books, so I do.
And I've never done an audiobook, but I'm thinking about trying it just to get the.
Oh my gosh!
And I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not. First of all, I'm not criticizing anybody who wants to read on a Kindle, and I think it's more important that people are reading however they choose to read, or even listening to books. They're getting information. But it's probably not the same experience, which doesn't mean it's a worse experience. It just means it's a different experience.
Do you guys? So you read? I assume occasionally you'll look at a New York Times article on a device, or never.
For example,
never.
No, absolutely.
Well, let me ask you this: do you read it differently? Does it? Because for me, if I read a physical thing, I actually literally consume the words differently.
I agree with that. Let me give you an example. This morning, I'm going to jury duty, and so I'm on the subway, and I've got my copy of the New York Times, and I'm reading it on the subway. And I mean, I'm not going to take my computer. I mean, I might have taken my computer with me because I could have gotten some work done, but I didn't. But I'm not going to pull my computer out on the subway and start, opening up and read the New York Times. I don't really enjoy. I mean, I check stuff on my phone. Like I check to see if, we've started a new war. I check the New York Times for things like that, like maybe a headline. But I don't usually read extensively. Like today I started reading an article about stuff that was going on in international news that doesn't pop up. You can find it if you're really digging for it online, but in the paper you go to section 4 or 5 and there's this big article about some foreign thing that's not hot. It's not the hot topic of conversation. It was about the the current stalemate in Ukraine. And I mean, I'm sure they could find that article. I'm sure it's there online, but it's not popping out when you open it up.
And I agree with you, Jim. I do look at the online version on my phone just to make sure we haven't done and started another war or something. But that's where you find these articles, is when you have the physical paper, and I don't want to sit on my phone and scroll through to see, is there something that the algorithm hasn't queued up for me, and I've now got to do this deep dive on my phone to find it.
Well, I guess I am wondering that. Does the New York Times change the order of articles it gives you based on you and an algorithm?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's certain headlines that are out there.
Well, they rotate headlines. I know. So, like the paper edition, it doesn't like hold one headline as the main headline. It changes headlines over the course of the day. I know that because it changes.
Although I assume
it's more than once a day.
I assume if there was some really big news, they may alter the wording. But if there literally is a new war, that's going to be the headline for at least a few hours until something other terrible thing happens. I mean, honestly, there's another part to this is checking your phone for the news these days is kind of like, oh my God, am I ready for some like terrible, unnerving, disempowering, awful thing that new to hear about?
Yeah, I've been trying not to read articles with his name in them, and it's funny how it's like because I start reading them and I'm like, why am I reading this? So what I've been doing in the New York Times app, is going to the sections and starting at like the art section or the magazine section or the environment section. No, and it's great, but you know what I find really interesting? You can't set in the app one of those to be the default screen that when you open it comes to. Because I almost would prefer that. I would almost prefer to like bypass the big news and focus on like the magazine. Because if I had a paper version, I'd probably grab that a section I want and have that be my first read. But because it feeds Trump in my face right away,
to be fair, they have to cover the news, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise.
But listen, I had a Wall Street Journal episode. I had a Wall Street Journal subscription for a little while, and I didn't realize how deeply I go into the Times app and how deep the cover, just the sheer quantity of articles is incomparable. It's incomparable.
And again,
and the length of the articles and the depth, because with the Wall Street Journal, you suddenly start realizing you're like, there seems like there's a lot, but there really isn't. Like every section has like 3 or 4 articles, and they're way shorter than the Times articles. And I think that's probably why. Who's the new guy at Warren Buffett's at Berkshire Hathaway who said he invested in the New York Times? Oh, it was big news, you guys. You didn't hear that like 5 months ago? It was big news. The new guy who is taking what's his face's place at Berkshire Hathaway has now made a huge investment in the New York Times, and everybody's reading that in the business world as like, oh, because their model, they're doing it, they're succeeding.
To be fair, they were early to get to the online thing, and they were also and got a lot of criticism for it.
Oh,
early to get the paywall up.
It was a very big deal.
People criticized them, and people also said no one is ever going to pay for this.
Right.
And that has proven to be wrong.
Right.
So
I just wonder if it's like a consolidation.
There is a market that people will pay for decent, responsible journalism. It may be not as big as it could be or should be.
Well,
but
it's not as big as, and you and I have talked about this before, Jim. It's not as big as what I would be needing to spend, which is basically another mortgage every month, to subscribe to all the Substacks that I want to subscribe to.
Yeah,
like if I wanted to subscribe to all the Substack people, I'm like, I like this guy, I like this person. If I'd be spending, it'd be like another mortgage every month.
You know what's going to come? I'll make a prediction. There's going to start to be Substack agglomeration. Somebody's going to say, you can get these 5 guys for this. Well, there you go. That's coming.
It's called the Bulwark. The one that I've heard a few people I know.
But there's going to be more of that.
And it's supposed to, it's like
there's going to be more of that.
Progressive Republicans.
More bundling.
And there's a bundling. Yeah, there's a bundle.
I mean, you're going to see, somebody's going to say, I like Nate Silver, I like this. There's going to be a bundle of that.
Nate Silver's lost it, dude. I don't know you're saying it. All he talks about is the NBA and poker. I'm not interested in anything. I'm utterly uninterested in sports, and I'm utterly uninterested in poker. I can't tell you. Boring. Super ultra mega boring.
Can I say something relevant to that? He has always done that. The difference is when he had the website, you could just say the sports thing was here, the politics thing was here. If you're only into politics, you just skip it. Now with the Substack, you just basically have to ignore the sports post.
Yeah.
But it's in your face more than it was when he had the website, because it was just like the different pages. So again, that's an example of where maybe the Substack format for what he does, because he and he's make no bones about it. He has different interests. He got started doing sports. He came to politics after that. He started doing sports analysis. So,
I
don't read the sports stuff either.
I'm unimpressed
and
by.
I'm definitely more of a sports fan than you are, but I don't read the sports.
Well, listen, I don't know what journalism is obliged to do and not do. I'm not that deep into journalistic ethics and what isn't, but there's no question that, Joe Rogan, who has the most listeners on the planet, is not doing journalism, right? He's just he's not held to any standard.
He's not
of
a very good
journalism.
songwriter either.
And I've never heard him. But my point is, the New York Times article.
Here.
No, because I want to come back to it. The New York Times putting up an article about the greatest American living songwriters, and then sneaking in some pedagogy about what it thinks we should be listening to or we should be saying is the greatest songwriter, feels like exactly what Joe Rogan or any other person who's just kind of putting their opinion out there, what they're doing. It doesn't feel like news.
Hold on. This is not in the news section. It's in the art section. And critics, wait a minute. Critics always, since there have been published criticism, critics are saying this is what you should be watching or reading.
So the art section of the New York Times has never been about the news in the arts. It's always been about opinion about what's going on in the arts.
There is some news coverage, but critics, which is part of the art section, has always been, this is good, this is bad. When has it been otherwise? Beth, do you ever... I mean, that's what critics do, right? You can disagree with them, but that's what they do. That's what they're there for. They're not there to summarize the story. They're there to give you their opinion. That's always been the case.
That's fair. I just don't know if,
I don't think it's being sneaky. I think they're giving you a curated
clearly,
list.
I didn't see it that way. The way I found the article was a link you sent me, or I searched for it,
right?
And I wouldn't have known it. And I'm not saying that, but I mean, to call an article the 20 greatest, and then, if it had a clear author, or if
it had 6
was
authors.
Is it prominently marked at the top of this, like opinion or criticism section? Is that what it says at the top of the page when you go to that?
Do you really think that the people think this is news as opposed to opinion? Come on, who's fooled by that?
This is the point. This is the point, right? I know people who think when they're reading their Facebook feed, they're getting the news. I mean, I'm sorry. They think.
You mean I'm not?
Yeah, I mean, this is reality.
Some people who listen to this podcast who
people listen to Joe Rogan and they think they're getting the news. There's no question they think they are.
I think they think they're getting what they think is the truth. Maybe that's the same thing as the news, and it is the truth for some people. That's what they believe.
Right. So that's what I get into what journalistic ethics are. Like, and I'm sure the New York Times has a far more detailed and high ethical standards.
As you know from studying Max Weber, all truth. All facts you can't completely untangle, quote, facts from beliefs. There's no such thing as a pure fact and a pure belief.
You're feeding the Donald Trump view of the world where it's just whatever you say, no truth. John,
that
lawyers,
I absolutely...
So maybe there's a little room, but this is
John, that I do not... we've had this discussion many times. I'm an absolute believer in truth. What I would say is, and I think the confusion many people make is, the truth is very often, and essentially on things that the most important things, the truth with a capital T is hard to figure out what the truth is. Having said that, that doesn't mean there is no truth, and it doesn't mean we should stop trying, and it also doesn't mean that we should figure out the best possible, what we can come as closest to it based on the information and judgment we have available. But it's the same thing we were talking about previously, is that doesn't mean in 10 years or 50 years and 100 years we'll say, we in good faith thought this was true, and it turns out we've learned some new things. Because if we are as a species are not learning new things, then we are truly dead. And that is how things improve over time. By acquiring more knowledge, whether it's scientific or whatever. But the point is that there is truth, and it's just very difficult to know what it is. That doesn't mean we should give up or throw up our hands. That's the same. That I do think people do that, And I think that people both on the left and the right, rather than deal with the fact
Sure,
that
Jim.
the truth is complicated and
Yes.
hard to figure out,
got it.
and they said, I'll just give in. I'll just believe in this ideology.
Yes.
And that gives
I
me all
get
the
it.
answers I need.
I get it. Listen, I'm all for the idea that truth is complex and what is
And
truth
it's
is
hard to
difficult to
figure it out.
define. But there's, I think, at least in the circles
There are a
in
lot
which
of
I
people who
travel,
don't care about the truth.
there are a lot of people who care about the truth, but they define truth very much the same as what their opinion is, and that they don't really have any rigor to the truth.
Because it's
There's no rigor
easier
to their
do
truth.
that. It's easier to just say, this is the thing, and I'm just going to believe it. And if something comes up that causes that question, I'm just going to ignore it. Or I'll
And
say
there's
it's
nothing
made
on
up.
the top of this article that says criticism or critique
It says,
or.
but if you read how we made the list, it's
I
clear.
get it, but it's not like the headline. It's not the headline.
So
How
John-
we made the list,
John-
and it's like
John-
30 greatest
John,
songwriters.
If you really think people are confused,
No, I mean, listen, it's not like it's Guinness
I
Book
don't
of World
understand.
Records. It's very absolute. It's like we
But if
are
they
telling
said
you.
the 30 greatest songwriters and we based it on the sales of their songs, that would be one thing. But they don't say that. I mean, you could make that list, I'm sure.
Well, no, right. I know, I understand. I guess I might have foregrounded. Is that a word? I might have foregrounded the people who are having opinions about, because
I mean, they
last
put
time
the
we
name.
talked about that. We talked
They
about how
put the names of the six people, the six critics
people,
who did.
right? They did,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that was buried in the methodology
Well, I
section.
mean,
it could have been right there in the byline, like opinion of,
Okay. All right.
right? I don't know. I know. No, listen, I like the article. I thought it was really
that's
good.
fine. It didn't bother me at all. Beth, what did you think?
I really didn't like.
Wait, no, let's Beth's comment on this question.
Well, Beth, Beth, go ahead.
Really? I can talk?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I thought it was a good launching point when we did the original, when Peg suggested it, the 30, because I looked at the list and was like, they're definitely missing some, and why is this person on here? And so when we got the new list, I was like, oh, this kind of tracks with what we said the other day. So, but I did look to see how they came up with it, because I do a lot of research. I find that interesting. What was the approach they took?
I agree.
So
I think also, if you have 100 names instead of 30, it's easier to be inclusive of a lot more names, obviously. So the top 30 list, if you look at the things, was heavy on, certain kind of music, and was heavy on.
What was it?
Males.
What was the certain kind of music it was heavy on?
Well, popular music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I would say.
Yeah.
And, mostly males and mostly white, not completely, of course. And, and mostly, as we said before, people that are known as performers. And again, nothing per se is wrong. I mean, I like the idea of trying to make the list a little bit more inclusive. And frankly, I like the fact that there are people on the list that I'm not familiar with, because one of the things is, I'm going to say, maybe I'm going to start listening to some of these people, and maybe I'll learn something.
We said that last time. I agree with that. I obviously like that stuff. I like it. For me, if we're having a discussion about the list, whether it's the People's List or the New York Times list, it has limited value. It has limited value unless we're talking about the methodology, because otherwise it's just opinion. And if it's just opinion, great. That's fine.
Well,
let's just call a spade, which I guess is racist.
I mean, they wrote a whole
call a song.
They wrote a whole sidebar article explaining how they did the original list. So it's not like they hid it. It's not like it's a mystery. So it is what it is. Beth, anything more to say about the list?
No, not at this time.
Taking my cues from Beth's comment. No, I think we've now gone almost 45 minutes, which is longer than the first when we had 5 people talking about the same topic. So maybe not having Peggy and Shelley here means that John and I talk too much, probably, right? Should we wrap things up?
Yes. You going to take us home?
Take us home.
Why don't you do it, John? You haven't done the take.
I brought us in.
Yes, but we can
Everybody,
do both.
thanks for listening. We love doing this podcast. We're having a lot of fun.
do.
We like to get together when we get together. If
We
you
do.
haven't noticed, we're doing more episodes more frequently now. We're also doing more behind the Patreon paywall.
Not this one, though.
Like $1 or $2. Jim will never be behind the paywall. It's like $1 or $2. You can buy us a coffee if you want to buy us a coffee. You can go to our website, insearchofanargument.com. Although I haven't updated it for a couple episodes, I'm going to get on that. It's so easy now not to do it. It's crazy. But listen, we love hearing from you. We love feedback. Anything you want to tell us, we will listen to. And whatever. We enjoy doing this, and we want to keep doing it. So if you can support us in any way, forward this to a friend, tell others about what we're doing. We're very grateful for that. And until next time, which will be soon.
Yeah, I
take
agree.
it easy. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.